The August of 1943, he called for recruits, people willing to go to Japan for training. We all pledged that we would work for our freedom, irrespective of the hardship that we will go through.
On 21st October 1943, Netaji proclaimed the formation of the Provisional Government of Free India in Singapore. In November 1943, Netaji attended the Greater East Asian Conference in Tokyo.
Your names will go down in history, not merely as the makers of a new republic, not merely as the makers of a new East Asia, not merely as the makers of a new Asia, but as the makers and the architects of a new world.
His eloquence helped to settle the differences the provisional government had with some of the Japanese officers. The Azad Hind government acquired its first territories when the Japanese handed over to it the jurisdiction of the Andaman and Nicobar Islands in the Bay of Bengal.
நேதாஜிக்கு ராணுவம் வந்து விட்டது, பூமி வந்து விட்டது, அதன் பின்புதான் வார்டு டிக்ளரேஷன் பண்றார்.
Then, of course, Singapore, the activities were mainly limited to recruitment training of INA and recruitment of training of Independence League and provisional government people and all that.
ட்ரைனிங் கொடுத்துக்கிட்டு இருக்கும்போது திடீர்னு சுபாஷ் சந்திர போஸ் அந்த கேம்புக்கு வந்துட்டார் பார்த்துக்கிடுங்க. வந்துக்கிட்டு இருக்கும்போது அன்றைக்கி அங்கே மற்றவங்கெல்லாம் அவங்க ஒரு குரூப்பில் வந்து ஃப்ரெண்டுக்கு ஆட்களை போகிறதுக்கு ஆளை எடுத்துக்கிட்டு இருந்தாங்க ஒரு குரூப்பு. அந்த எடுத்துக்கிட்டு இருக்கிற சமயத்தில் அந்த இடத்துல அவர் போய் சுபாஷ் சந்திர போஸ் கேட்ட உடனே என்ன செய்றீங்கன்னா இந்த மாதிரி எடுக்கிறோன்னு சொன்ன உடனே ஒரு பையன் பார்த்துருக்கேன், ஒரு 3.25 அடி 4 அடி தான் இருப்பான். அவன் நான் 4 அடி எதிரி வந்து இதில் குண்டு அடிப்பட்டு நான் முன்னால் விழுந்தோன்னா இந்திய மண்ணில் விழுந்தோன்னா 4 அடி நான் பிடிக்கிறேன் அப்படின்னு உடனே நேதாஜிக்கு ஒரே ஆர்வம் உண்டாகி போச்சு. அந்த வார்த்தை சொன்ன உடனே அவர் அப்படியே சரி இவனை உடனே அனுப்புங்க அப்படின்னு சொல்லி அவனை ஃப்ரெண்டுக்கு அனுப்பி வச்சாங்க.
கடைசியில் ஒரு 6-7 மாதம் கழிச்சு சுபாஷ் வந்தாங்க. சுபாஷ் வந்து தன்னுடைய ட்ரெஸ்ஸில் அப்படி இப்போ அந்த ஃபோட்டோவில் கூட இருக்கும், அந்த ட்ரெஸ்ஸில் வந்து உங்களை வந்து நான் கட்டாயப்படுத்தலை, இந்த இடத்துல இருந்து வெள்ளைக்காரன் விரட்டணும், நம்ம நாடு சுதந்திரம் ஆகணும், அதனால நீங்கள் யாருமே சந்தோஷமா வரதா இருந்தால் வாங்க, உங்களை இமிசை பண்ணுங்க. அவளுடைய லெக்சர்லையும் அவளுடைய இதுலையும் நாங்கள் அத்தனை பேருமே கைத்துக்கி ஜெயஹிந்த் இந்துஸ்தான் அஜாத், நாங்கள் முன்னால் எடுத்து வைத்த காலை பின்னால் எடுத்து வைக்க மாட்டோம், நாங்கள் தயாராக பண்ணிட்டோம். அப்போ எனக்கு என்ன உறுதினா அத்தனை பேரும் கையெழுத்து போட்டோம், கிரி ரத்தத்தில் கையெழுத்து போட்டிருக்கோம்.
சிங்கப்பூரில் பேர் சிதேதார் கேம்பில் ஷூட்டிங் நடத்திட்டு அதிலிருந்து வழியாக ரெங்கோனுக்கு அழைச்சி போனாங்க. அங்கே போய் நம்ம இந்தியாவும் பர்மாவும் பிரிக்கக்கூடிய இடம் அரக்காங்கிற ஒரு மலை, அதிலிருந்து தான் சண்டை ஆரம்பிச்சது. நான் வந்து 5th கொரிலா.
ஒரு 3/4 மணி நேரத்தில் ஏதோ அந்த தெய்வ கிருவையினால செட்டு ஓகே ஆனதும் அதில் இருந்து ஆப்ரேட்டர் விட்டு ஆப்ரேட் பண்ணினாக்க அவன் காதில் போட முடியாது, ஓவர் சவுண்டுன்னா அட்ஜஸ்ட் பண்ணி கொடுத்தேன். உடனே கை தட்டி எல்லாத்துக்கும் ரொம்ப ஆரவாரம் ஆயிடுச்சு. உடனே நேதாஜிக்கு ஆடு போச்சுது, செட்டு ஓகே. அங்கேருந்து வந்தார், யார் ஏதோ செய்தாங்க, தட்டி கொடுத்தாரு, பேய் புக்கை எடுங்க. உடனே பார்த்தாரு, ஆல் ரைட் அப்படின்ட்டு நாய்க்கு உனக்கு 2 கூட நாய்க்கு நான் கொடுத்துருக்கிறேன். ये कोई भी निकाल नहीं सकता, तुमको बढ़ा सकता, कोई उतार नहीं सकता. அப்படியே மாதம் 3 ஆச்சு. அட்வான்ஸ் ஆகலன்னுட்டு வருத்தப்படும். அப்போ சொன்னார், आप क्या करेगा, अभी बोलो क्या करना. நான் சொன்னேன், அவர்கிட்ட சொன்னேன், बोलो साहब बजरंग बली की जय बोलो, बजरंग बली की जयனாக்கா 18 சார்ஜ் விட்டாக்க இதில் வேற வழியே கிடையாது அப்படின்னுட்டு சொன்னது. என்ன பண்ணியாச்சு, எல்லாம் செட்டப் ஆச்சுது. என்ன மிஷின் கனுக்கு அனுப்புனாங்க, மிஷின் கன்னில் இருந்தோம். டாப் ஃபயர் ஆயிடுச்சு, சைடில் பஜரங்க பலி போட்டாச்சு. 20 நிமிஷத்துக்குள்ள அதை
खुशी के गीत गाए जा, ये जिंदगी है कौम की, कौम पे लुटाए जा, कदम कदम बढ़ा
We stayed in the house of one Lieutenant Colonel Tharapawala, who was during the British time the Director General of Prisons in Burma. Then in July 1944, we decided to move further forward, and we went up to Memio. Of course, Memio had those daily bombing, but we were far away from the places they were bombing. We were quite safe. And from Memio, we had to conduct the activities. Of course, the army was there. We have already brought the Jhansi Rani regiment from Rangoon to Burma. 2 divisions of our army were already fighting there in the jungles of Burma, moving forward or trying to move forward. Along with the Japanese army. The Japanese army was also there. The Japanese had appointed a commander, particularly for the Indian sector. His name was General Mutaguchi. Somehow or other he couldn't make much headway because the Japanese by that time had no supplies. So when they have no supplies, then we have no supplies also. So our soldiers really suffered a lot. But still they moved forward. But the British and Americans on the other Indian side, they had everything. Planes, American planes, completely in command of sky.
இங்க மேல B-29 பாம்ஸை கொண்டாந்து போட்டோம். அந்த 29 பாம்ஸை போட்ட உடனே யாருமே அந்த இடத்துல எங்களால் நிலைக்க முடியல, போக முடியல, செய்ய முடியல. அப்பவும் எங்களுடைய வீரத்தை, எங்களுடைய உணர்ச்சியும் நாங்கள் விடலை. எங்களுக்கு கையில் துப்பாக்கி இருந்தாலும் கூட ரவுண்ட்ஸு ஆமினேஷன் எவ்வளோ ஒன்று இருந்தாலும் கூட ஒன்றை கூட நாங்கள் சுட்டு தான் நாங்கள் இது பண்ணோம் கடைசி முடி வரைக்கும். கடைசியில் அவனுடைய பாம்ஸில் எரிபாம், அத்தனை எரிபாம். வீடு இருந்தால் எரியும், மண் எரியுது, வீடு எரியுது, பச்சை மரங்கள் எரியுது. இப்படி எரிகள் இருக்கும்போது நாங்கள் எல்லாருமே தின்னுவாங்க.
Eventually we surrounded Imphal, and little before that Colonel Malik, one of our INA officers, hoisted the Indian flag in a place in India. It's a place called Moirang. So that is the first time the Indian independence flag was hoisted in Indian soil. But by that time, the rains have started. Actually, it was much earlier than the usual. And where the soldiers, when they were going, they crossed small nalas, dry, walked across. Were all like flowing rivers by the time they started retreating. Without food, they couldn't go forward, they couldn't stay in Imphal. But if they could have stayed in Imphal for 1 more week, then the British would have surrendered in Imphal. But they were completely surrounded. Unfortunately, they also knew that the rains will, and the rains made the damage. Netaji wanted to move to the front and see what is happening in spite of the rains, but then those who are responsible for his safety, they said, no, you can't go forward. You can't go any forward from Memio. It was the end of 1944. So one day, actually one night, he did not come out of his room. There was no light in his room. He didn't speak to anybody. He didn't come for lunch, he didn't come for dinner. Then the next morning only we were informed that his mother died. So after that we came back to Rangoon and again continued the activities as usual. Supreme Command League Headquarters, then arrangement for withdrawal from there wherever you can. Wherever withdrawal is not absolutely necessary, go forward, try to go forward a little more. And try to control the morale of the army, because once the army starts retreating, it becomes very difficult for those who are behind. It becomes very difficult for them. So that to control the morale was also a job. But because of his personality, everything went up all right.
In the midst of all this, he had time to write to us, write letters, and he made Bhaskaran send them out at every opportunity when someone was leaving, whether it was a Japanese or whether it was an Indian officer going to Japan. From time to time when letters came in, there were also some gifts. There were sometimes papads and bundles of it, because we were youngsters and he felt that we were undernourished.
The Japanese also advised, now we cannot stay anymore in here with safety, so you should please withdraw from here to Bangkok. We agreed past midnight that night, nothing about 1 o'clock. Midnight or 1 o'clock, we reached a place called Woh, spelled W-O-H. There was a river, a small river, which was full with water, but no bridge. The bridge has been blown off. So what the Japanese had done was they had arranged a small ferry, not a ferry quite, they tied a few logs, a raft like, and they used to put a lorry or a car in it once and pull from the other side and goes on the other side of the river, takes off, then they pulled back and put another one. So when we reached Wo, a line of cars and lorries queued up to go through because you can take one only at a time. So we were about the 75th or so cars, our trucks and all. There would have been no chance for us to get through that night, impossible for us. So luckily, one of the staff officers of General Soda came to me and told me, Bhaskaran, we will arrange one thing. We will take Netaji's car and the other two, General Bonsule's car and General Kiani's car, to the paddy field. Drive them to the paddy field. No mind if they get wet, drive them to the paddy field and bring them up here. Then we will take them across. We did that. They brought Japanese drivers and they recklessly drew and came to the paddy field, got to the place and got those three cars were taken across. But he didn't immediately cross. Netaji didn't immediately cross. He stayed there, called me. Because he was seeing that many people are going. So called me and said, how many Jansi girls have we got in our group? I said, we got 58. Exactly, I know the number 58. Can you swim? Yes, I can swim. Take them across. And I took two of them at a time. Told them, don't catch me, because there's plenty of water is flowing. Don't catch me, I'll catch you. But if you catch me, we'll all sink. Like that I made 29 trips up and down. I took them all across. But they were all wet, looking very pretty bad to see. But only they held their rifles after a lot of time. Rifles were not wet. So that night immediately we took them on to an empty, there were a number of empty houses. We didn't know whose house it was we were occupying. There was an empty house over there. We told them, you go inside here and get yourself pumped up, change your clothes or whatever it is you have got with you. So they went there and they tried to adjust because no men are there, so they tried to adjust. Then by the time Netaji came across, early morning at about 4 o'clock, they started coming machine gunning, that particular place again. And by the time it's 8 o'clock in the morning, when there was sufficient light, we could see that all the lorries and trucks that were on the other side are burnt, gone, completely gone. Including our lorry, everything is gone. Including my clothes for it, it's gone. Then we started walking again from there, quite a long distance. And we can't walk very fast. People have all got blisters on their legs, you see, from Goa to Sitang. Now in these 75 miles, Netaji never got in this car even once. He was walking throughout. He used to ask everybody to get in. Whoever wants to get in the car and go, Bhaskaran, get so and so. Are you all right? You get in the car. He will never get inside.
I am going to walk with my girls until Rani of Jhansi regiment reaches Bangkok. I am not going to get into any car. அப்படின்னு சொல்லிட்டு நேதாஜி எங்க கூடவே நடந்தாரு. நேதாஜி கிட்ட சொன்னேன், உங்க ஷூ எல்லாம் அவருங்கன்னு சொன்னேன். அவர் அவுத்து பார்த்த பிறந்தா காலெல்லாம் அப்படியே பொண்ணா கொப்பளம் ஆயிடுச்சு.
Destination is Bangkok. Now from Mulmen, after a few miles, virgin forest, Pakka forest. Japanese asked us to wait, and they said Netaji and 4 officers could go in a jeep fitted with railway wheels on what is called the death railway. You must have heard of the death railway.
அந்த கவாய் ரிவர் மேலே தான் அந்த பிரிட்ஜ் இருக்கும். அந்த பிரிட்ஜ் ரொம்ப நேராவாக இருக்கும். அந்த ட்ரெயினில் போகும்போது பார்த்தா 2 பக்கமும் ஒரே பள்ளத்தாக்கு. அந்த பள்ளத்தாக்கில் நிறைய ட்ரெயின் கவுந்திருக்கும். நிறைய பேர் செத்து கிடப்பாங்க.
We left Mulmen on the 11th of May 1945 and I reached Bangkok 24th of May. Took 13 days to get through the jungle. Netaji was very worried because he was doing news where we were, what is happening, what happened and all that. But then when we reached there, he was very happy. For the first time he asked his orderly to give me a drink. For the first time he said, give Bhaskaran brandy. He had only told the Japanese some months before, 1 month before, that you will lose the war. Because you have bitten much more than you can chew. You have gone in so many places. You must withdraw from all there and try to defend your home. Then there is some chance for you. But of course, he didn't think of the atom bomb at that time. So,
Genshi Bagada, which means atomic weapon has been used. Though we were only a few 100 kilometers away from Hiroshima, we did know that there was such a aerial bombardment that it caused such havoc.
Then even Singapore, they gave all the instructions to the army what to do, how to surrender when the Japanese lands, and no fighting. Surrender peacefully so that you will go back peacefully home. Many of you may have to suffer, but I can't help it. Can't be helped. And nobody bothers. No, we don't mind any suffering, so long as you are safe. On the 15th, the Japanese surrendered. 14th night, Netaji was informed that they are going to surrender next day. So 15th they surrendered, and 16th morning he left from Singapore. Before leaving Singapore, he wanted to put Malaya in charge of somebody, so that all the Jhansi girls could be sent their homes, all the finance, how to manage all the sort of thing. So he said the best man you could think of was Mr. Raghavan, who was one of the ministers also. He was in Penang. So he sent Major Swami in his car, Netaji's car, to go and bring Mr. Raghavan, so I can leave the charge to him and go. But Raghavan didn't come. He knew the Japanese had surrendered already. He refused to come. He didn't refuse that way. He produced a medical certificate and all sort of thing and delayed Swami for a day. He couldn't come. Then Swami left Penang without Raghavan. Netaji had to leave 16th morning by plane, came to Bangkok. They came to Bangkok about 4 o'clock in the afternoon and started hectic consultation with the Japanese. Japanese generals coming and going, and the room closed, not many people were allowed. The Japanese wanted always that Your Excellency must come alone. Then we can safely take you. Because their argument was, of course, it is very difficult to tell the enemy that 20 people have disappeared and we don't know where they are. Then one man has disappeared. He said, no, I am not running away. I want my staff to come with me because I am going with a definite plan. The plan was that he will go to Russia. The Russians were ready to receive him also. Then, unfortunately, Russia entered the war against Japan. So Japanese planes couldn't go in Russia anymore. So then Japan told him, no, look, you can't go to Russia. There is no point in your saying you will go to Russia. No, you can't, because we can't go. We can go only to Manchuria. Beyond that, we can't go. So it was finally agreed that the Japanese will take him and his party to a place in Manchuria as far as the Japanese plane could go at that time and leave him there. Beyond that is his own responsibility. It was agreed on that basis. But even then they said you can only come alone. But finally they said after Saigon, now we will go to Saigon and decide after Tarochi. Tarochi was supreme commander for the whole Japanese army in that area. So we'll meet him and then let us see what his instructions are, then we'll tell according to that. So we went. 8 seats were given. 7 officers and Netaji. They went from there. They reached Saigon. Netaji met Tarochi, and the understanding was that Tarochi told him, take only one person with you because there is no place, we have no planes now to give you because nothing is in our control. Everywhere that they have landed, nothing is in our control. So they say he took Colonel Habib and went away from Saigon. Now we'll come to that a little later. Now before leaving Bangkok, after all this is over, it is post of everything, everybody gave everybody instructions as to what they should do, how the league fund is to be used, how the army should be given enough money, how everybody should be given money. The same thing was done in Burma. They put Lieutenant General Loganan in charge and told him surrender without any fight. And the money is there in the bank. The managing director was Mr. Bahaduri. The instructor Bahaduri, that go to every house, Indian house, and give them a piece of gold. So that next month, because they have all got only Japanese money in hand, and the Japanese money will have no value the moment the British lands there. So they will not starve. They can sell the gold, make something. And Bahaduri, we were told he did it later. Anyway, we heard from there like that. As he was leaving in the morning, everybody was leaving. We went to Don Mueang Airport. That Don Mueang Airport is a place from there to go. So not many were asked to go to Don Mueang Airport. I was there, of course, as usual. Came out, and everybody went into the plane one by one. He was last, everybody went into the plane. Last he came to me. The most important part is now he couldn't speak a word, neither could I. So he just embraced me and went away. That was the last time I saw him. But before leaving Bangkok that morning, he had, at 4 a.m. he had written a letter to Mr. TV, putting TV in charge of Malaysia. All the organizations, all our league organizations, everything there, to take charge of everything. There is enough money in this thing, what they should do with the money, how every Jansi girl should be escorted to her house individually, hand over to his parents. With sufficient money for them to live for a few days. Every one of them looked what they should do, this. Wrote a long letter. It was nearly 1.5 page letter, full-scale page letter. I typed it. He dictated and I typed it straight away. Then as a last line, I wrote, I am writing all this in detail to you because, it's very important, this line, I am on the eve of taking a long journey by air, and who knows, an accident may not overtake me. So either he had planned the accident early, which I think is true. He wanted me to know also, as well as TV to know. That is not, the accident story will come, don't believe it. That is what I think he meant. So far as the departure from Saigon, with Colonel Abhibraman and Netaji is concerned, I don't agree. I don't think he went into that plane. And I don't think there was an accident in Taiwoku. I don't believe that story also. In Taiwoku, one Japanese officer died around that time. His body was taken for the electric crematorium, and there they said the boss's body. You see? And I was informed by various sources later that the coffin which contained the body was only 5 feet. And Netaji is a 6-footer. Whole 6 feet he is. Couldn't have gone into that. And it is said, Netaji, when we returned from Burma, we had one of the senior most generals with us, captain generals with us, General Shide. He was going to take charge of the Kongtung Army, which is the Japanese elite army fighting in Manchuria. He was going to take charge of that. He was going to take command of that. So it is my belief, even now my belief, is that Netaji and Colonel Shide could speak German, Netaji could speak German. So they don't have to wait for an interpreter. They went in a plane from Saigon, not this way, but some other way. Maybe to Manchuria they must have gone. Maybe Netaji reached Manchuria, tried to cross over, or maybe died at that time. Somebody must have shot him. Or he must have Maharashtra, Russian jail in Siberia, must have died there. So how he died is a very difficult thing now to say. Many people, of course, believe that the ashes which is kept in Japan is his ashes, which I don't believe. I am conclusively, I am telling you, I don't believe that.